everyone. Welcome back to the Women in Between podcast. This is a podcast where we talk about navigating life's transitions with grace and purpose. And I am so excited to have a new guest with us this session, Xanthia. Hey, woo, 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 woo. So excited to have you on the show. So I'll turn it over to you and introduce yourself to the community.
Oh, hey, y'all. First of all, thank you so much for allowing me in your space and in this fancy podcast. It's a pleasure. Well, like you mentioned, my name is Xanthia Baptiste. I am the founder of Reflect Love, which the main goal for Reflect Love is foundational, build on love, mental health and resiliency. And then the goal is building generational mental health wealth. I do have 3 kiddos, so I'm a mommy, 12, 13, and 14.
Ooh, you are really in the thick of it.
Yeah, this is good. And then I do also a mental health counselor at a community college. And what else I do? I'm really into the community, really giving back, just having that servant's heart to be able to educate people about mental health. In my experience, hoping my story, my scars, my wounds will help somebody, stay here again.
Yeah.
And that's just my goal. That's the snippet, I think, of who I am.
That's a good snippet. No, I'm still stuck on 12, 13, and 14. Those are some really tough ages. So you're already a superwoman in my book, managing that and everything else.
Yeah, I actually love them at that age. I think I love kids, but I think a lot of people throw off teenagers, but they are trying to find themselves and understand who they are, because they're not like in elementary where you're a kid and you're not in high school where it's like, dang, I'm about to be an adult. You're really in the middle.
Yes.
So that's why I kind of like this age. I allow a space for them to come and talk to me. And they sometimes overshare, but sometimes I think I rather them have the conversation with me versus not telling me at all, because I
Exactly.
want to know.
Yeah. I mean, well, and you talk about, breaking, generational, and there's also, generational curses, right? And I think for a lot of us, we did not feel safe enough going to our parents and having those conversations. So I think that's such a win when your kids can come in and they're like, can I tell you about this issue? Because I'm with you. I'd rather my daughter and son tell me about an issue and I can walk them through it with their best interests at heart instead of having, one of their little friends trying to explain. So I get it. I get it.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they come and sometimes they say bro, sometimes they might slip up and cuss, but it's not like I'm like, what did you just say? I tell them be respectful. That's what we're loving respect in this house, because that's where I'm at with kids. Once they see that you respect them, it's kind of like okay, now they start warming up and they want to share a little bit more. But I just want to be able to guide them. And I don't want to be in that space that I hear a lot of parents say, oh, my teenager don't talk to me. My teenager always in their phone. Because I'm always going to be like, okay, we got to work on some parenting skills. But, as a mom, I feel like we are responsible for setting the atmosphere in our home. So it's more of me making sure I work on myself, and then they're going to start changing just by me. And I felt that, and I seen it, especially after my divorce. We just got to work on us so we could literally be the best for them.
That's really all it is. And it's so hard, I feel like, to pivot your focus when you want to focus on everything else, because you feel like, well, if I can manage this other person, if I can manage this situation, it's going to create an environment where my children can thrive, when in reality, they're just going off of you.
Yeah.
And my mom actually, she told me this maybe 2 weeks ago, because we were in the middle of moving. And she said, you can always tell that you're making the right decisions for your kids by how they're responding to life? Like,
Mm.
are they happy? Do they come across as like emotionally stabilized? And I think that's always a really good guiding light for me in the
Yeah,
decisions that I
that's
make.
good.
So I love to
Okay,
hear you say
mommy.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
come
it's
on,
good that she said that's definitely true because it's almost like even when I'm counseling, I don't want the kids to have to live in a state of depression.
Mm,
So if I'm depressed, then the whole house depressed, right? And
mm-hmm.
then so if I have high anxiety, am I managing it correctly to make sure I'm not throwing it off on the kids? So that's why I always say we kind of set that atmosphere of our household. Not to say I have to be perfect because they know like I'm gonna take my mommy time Mondays. Like I
Yeah,
said, I went to go get mimosas, right? Because I'm going to, but to take that time so I can refuel and I can make sure my cup is overflowing. And
exactly.
they know. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. They're watching you. And
Yes.
when you were talking about reflect love and, hoping that your scars, can be a pathway for others. I love that you had that. I did look up your site because I'm the professional stalker, the recruiter. And so when you said that, you said, I hope my scars and wounds are signs of hope for others who are on the edge and drawing in darkness. And I love that. And then my purpose is to reflect love on others so they don't remain in the battlefield of mind game.
Mm,
Wow. So
girl.
that's good. Yeah, that's it's good. I mean, because I don't know, we talked about this a little, navigating grief is a
Mhm.
very dark place. And when you don't have people around you that have walked that same path, it feels even darker. And, the layers of grief get even deeper because you feel like you're living an isolated experience.
Yeah.
So, tell me, did Reflect Love come about? Why did Reflect Love come about? Kind of walk me through that.
Yeah, so Reflect Love. Normally, most of my panhandles is Reflect Love 327. And the
Mm,
327 is actually the day that I got married. And Reflect Love, it was like I had to learn how to love someone else and
hmm.
become selfless. So that's what made me say, in my marriage, it made me discover, like, oh my gosh, I have to love this other person, more than I love myself, but I have to be selfless, and I have to, just try to reciprocate that love and show
Yeah,
love to this person, show love to that person. And then it was just like, dang, too, I also get this love from God. And then I see people are not being loved and then don't know how to love.
yeah,
So that's where my marriage is what really like threw this off because of understanding what love is. How do we want to be loved? How am I supposed to love this other person? So it got us reading the five love languages, love and respect. Like I was invested on love. And especially the love of God, like it's do everything with love. And so that's where that started. And then as we continued going into my profession, um, it was me realizing that I have to love myself. So it's like finding that self love, that self worth, that self esteem, that self confidence, all of that. It was like, wait, some of the stuff that I don't have to like continue dealing with, um, it made me understand that you have to love yourself enough to save yourself. And
yes,
sometimes we want to be the superhero for everybody else except for ourselves. And I know that, yeah, I'm such an empath. Yeah, I always put myself on the back burner. Like I hear these same things over and over. And it's like, dang, I'm over here drowning in this doldrum and there's nobody here to help me as much as I poured out.
yeah.
So that's just how it all came about, really.
Oh, wow. I mean, and I definitely get you have to be able to save yourself, love yourself enough to save yourself. And I don't know, I feel like that's such a tough lesson to learn because
Yeah.
I know for me, I was taught you give and you continue to give. And
Mhm.
that's the work that we're supposed to do. And I found myself in a lot of situations that really weren't beneficial for me. They could have been beneficial for another person. And by not standing up for myself and choosing a different path is almost a form of self sabotage too.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
true.
when it's one thing when you're not aware. Definitely that was the case. And then there were the points where I became aware, and I always say I'm a recovering people pleaser.
Mm,
Because I don't think it's something that can be perfected. My natural instinct, right, is to give. And I found myself having to ask always, is this something that you genuinely want to do? Is this going to take from you? Is this going to benefit you? Those sequences of questions before I give up large portions of myself to anyone, whether it be my kids, relationships, anything, because it can become draining.
yeah, I do agree. And that's almost sound like you're really setting boundaries in all the realms, right? To
Yeah.
understand. And people just be like, oh, I'm setting boundaries, whatever. But then there's like boundaries, then there's safeguards. And that's
Yes.
what I feel like those asking those questions is your safeguards. And boundaries is saying, you know what? No, not at this time. No, we went over this before. I'm going to pass now. And I think is we do a lot of fawning. That's more like people pleasing.
Yes.
So we don't understand that it's okay to say no.
Yes.
And you're gonna take this no and we're gonna keep going.
Yep.
Um but we just feel like we're thinking about the other person more than ourselves.
Yes. Yes.
Um but I don't think I would have ever learned about self awareness and mindfulness if I did not go into this path because I didn't know about mental health, suicide attempts within my family.
Mm.
But I still didn't know about mental health. I was just like, we always say, why he just tried to kill himself? But I didn't know the word suicide, and it happens to be Suicide Prevention Month. But
Yes.
we didn't talk about that. We didn't talk about why I'm having these crying spells or me being between my mom and my dad, first, third, and fifth weekend, rotating holidays. Like nobody asked me how I felt about this, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like now it's just more aware, it's more talked about. But I want it to be authentic and not just a fad
Yes.
because it is real.
Yes. And there are definitely areas where it has become a fad. Are there any like specific topics that you feel like, just being in the industry that have become a fad or just overused or even like the wrong terms being used? I'm curious about that.
I think everyone knows about anxiety and depression, and a lot of people self diagnose. Um,
Mm.
I would say that's where we go to like Dr. Google the place. No, but we go to Dr. Google and we look up like all these things. And once you get in there, you're in the rabbit hole.
Oh,
Um and especially if you're on TikTok, then you just start watching all these stuff about somebody else and how they feel, and you're like, "Ooh, I feel like this too. Ooh, I should do." And then we put our own selves sometimes into those dark spaces.
mm.
Instead of us looking up, being proactive and looking up, hey, I am feeling like this. How do I get out of it? We want to have that like trauma bond kind of with other people and say, if they feel like this too, I want to feel like this.
Oh,
And that's
oh.
where that fad is like, all right, because that person did it, I want to go do it too. And kind of we see that sometimes with suicides as well
Yeah.
that's completed. Oh, this person jumped off the guy who jumped off
The Statler?
the San Francisco
Oh,
the
yeah.
red
Uh-huh.
yeah. So he shares his story too because he wants to save people, and I think he implemented something where they could build something to try to like prevent people from jumping because when he jumped he actually survived.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes back and share his story, but that's kind of like what people do when they see something like, "Oh, I want to go do that too."
Yeah.
Especially with the celebrities that's been doing it more publicly. That's where it kind of becomes that fad like, "Oh, if that person do it, then oh, okay, I could do it too."
Exactly.
Um but it's really for me, I feel like we just have to educate ourselves because when we know about it and then we know how to deal with it and implement the coping skills or the techniques, then we could kind of get out of that dark place and the stump.
Yeah, because you really can get stuck there. I feel like I didn't start to proactively focus on my mental health until I went through my separation. And I think
Mhm.
the way my therapist describes, she's like, there's some experiences that you have that jolts you into depression versus, right, having the chemical imbalance to be predisposed. And so that was definitely the first moment in my life where I experienced that to the extent where like I didn't want to get out of bed. It was
Mhm.
really hard for me to even engage in conversation. And for, shout out to Mama Cheryl again, for you have to have people in your corner speaking positive, sometimes prophetic words, getting you out of those situations.
Yeah.
Especially when you do have Google at your disposal. And then it went from, depression and then the healing process when I first started
Mhm.
in therapy. And that's when I started to really dive deeper into what is self-care, but not only self-care, but what is self-love and what is self-worth. Like
Mhm.
getting down to the root of it, because I always associated self-care was like, oh, treat yourself, take that bath, that dress. That's what
I mean, that's in there too.
is in there. But what my therapist
Right.
had to let me know, right? Because I people pleaser, struggling with boundaries. She's like, no, your issue is all the way at the root of self worth.
Mhm.
And I didn't recognize there were all these layers to it. So it was first building up my self worth, then building up the self love that I had to be able to take on those self care practices. And they were also weaved within. But that's always something I feel like self care is talked about. And then there's all of these different layers to it to even fit to find yourself worthy to participate in those self care practices.
Yeah. Mhm.
So that's always been a struggle for me.
Yeah, I agree. I do see the self care, on our outward appearance, but then self care is also us working on our internal self as well.
Yes.
So when you mentioned about the self worth and self love, um, I always with my student, I always start off with so silly, but I always start this thing of like letting go. And I hosted like this visionary experience, and we did the break the plate challenge.
Oh, I love that. I've heard about where you
Yeah,
write on the plates, right?
yeah, yeah. So that's stuff that we're battling stuff within our minds, but we can't even go forth to do it. Oh, look at my vision board. Our vision board,
There you
because
go.
we're holding things on us that's blocking us. So these like block or like caution signs or anything of that sort for us to move forward. So all this stuff is internal. So more I'm just like, we gotta build self esteem. We gotta
Mhm.
do self worth. And all that stuff is internal, and then we illuminate the self confidence. Being grateful is internal, then we illuminate the happiness. So when we
Yeah.
work on ourselves from the inside out, just like that healing process, we start to understand more about ourselves. Yes, I want to do my nails. Yes, I'm gonna do my lashes and my hair
Mhm.
and my clothes. Absolutely. But then I'm also gonna think about that emotional and that mental aspect of um the realm of self care and
Yeah.
making sure that I am balancing well, and then that way things could be in harmony. So
Mm.
things will flow that way. And and especially when we talk about the life work balance,
Yeah.
it's like we don't know which way to pull. But even how we say it, we always say work life balance first. Words matter, so I always like, you mean life work balance?
Yeah.
Just to pay attention to that. So your therapist is correct. Hey, high five for going to therapy. But yes, that is working on our internal self and then helping us heal along the way. And I love that healing is a journey.
Yeah.
It's not just like I'm like, all right, I'm healed. That's it. We're wrapping this up, right? But then learning how to heal on in your alone time, not in
Mhm.
your isolation time, but in your alone time.
Mm.
different things because
Very
isolation, I get in
different.
my head. Yeah. But being in my alone time means I'm loving myself. I'm okay. I could take myself out on a date. I could just be here and read a book and, not start the negative thoughts start coming
Yeah.
to me. I always tell people you are in control of your thoughts. Your thoughts are not in control of you. Right? So being in that alone time and being able to take care of myself. And then I can say, you know what? I'm ready to be with somebody else because being with somebody else, then I can see that person and they can expedite my healing because now we're in a mirror relationship and I'm
Mm,
able to see more of my imperfections from that person and they could highlight, oh, I see this bothered you. Let's work on this together. So
yeah.
now I'm not doing it by myself. So the healing is like through the roof because now I have somebody else,
Yeah.
that's on this journey with me.
Yeah. I love that you talk about the healing journey and also bringing someone on that journey with you because, I used to get mad, especially when I was going through my dating journey, and people would tell me, like, well, Jelesa, you're still healing. I was like, okay, yeah, but that doesn't
Yeah.
mean I'm like you can have two of those. They're not, what is it, mutually exclusive, right? You can
Yeah.
be on that healing journey and still be suitable for someone else. Because that phrase just made me feel like, so because I'm divorced, because I'm healing from something, I'm not eligible for this experience. When, like you
Yeah.
said, you can heal alongside someone. And I think, dating in itself or just experiencing different relationships has been healing just from practicing boundaries, right? Learning who I am through those relationships, like you said. But I have had so many narratives where it's either or. You can either heal or you can be with someone. And those are,
And that's what my goal is to flip the script with that and change the narrative because it's just like exactly what you're saying. Like, can I not be dating because I'm still healing? No, we could do both.
yeah,
And be okay with it because that other person is also healing too. So we're all healing together.
exactly.
But it's just where you're at in your stage of healing, right?
Yeah,
Because now if I'm going to be with somebody who's aware that they are on a healing journey, so when something does happen with us and we have a disagreement, because we're healing, we know we could have conflict resolution
yes,
and continue to heal together, right? When
exactly.
something triggers me and that person communicates, hey, I noticed A, B, C, or D, you responded like this. That's not like you. That person is mature enough to see that because they are also healing.
Yes.
We're just like,
And
we're just going to
you
heal
hit a good
together.
point. Aware, being
Yes,
aware.
awareness.
Are they
Mhm.
aware of themselves? Is the biggest piece. And you said you started Reflect Love, out of your marriage and learning how to
Yeah.
love within a marriage, right? Which is one of the best, but also most challenging experiences to love
Yeah.
someone. 'Cause you have to give up, or not necessarily give up parts of yourself, but there is a larger form of consideration that has to be given out of that love. But
Hmm.
you also mentioned, right, you're now divorced. How would you say your view and how you approach love has changed?
That's a good question. And I still love. People be like, after bad relationships, they be like, man, I ain't talking to no more guys. Like, forget this or
Yeah.
whatever. No, I still love. I believe as much love as I give out, it is going to return to me more than double. I'm not giving up on God. It's crazy. I just talked about this yesterday with a friend, and I said, um, I pray to God to prepare me for my husband, not to just send me a husband because he's gonna send anybody, right? But to be specific, I want him to prepare me to, take care of my husband, learn from my last marriage, like things, what to do, what not to do, what to say, what not to say, understanding a man.
Oh,
I
but you
started
know what?
that because
You do have to understand how a man's mind works.
yes,
Mhm.
and they're more like we're just trying to get this off, and I'm like, I want to process
Yeah,
this, you know.
yeah.
Understand giving their space, but also creating a space for them to be vulnerable. Even I'm still on setting the atmosphere of the whole house, even as a wife. When my husband comes in, I want to make sure this is a safe space for him. So I am still excited about love, and I really just want to be in a healthy relationship,
Yeah.
where we're both aware and we could continue to grow and heal. And I'm that wife that is like pushing her husband to do better and see better, and even be his peace.
Hmm.
Just we're at Proverbs 31 at this moment. I
We
just
might,
pray
yeah.
God
I was
bless
about
me
to
like
say, let me
that.
pull up my Bible app real. We're there. Yeah.
Yeah. So love is still near and dear to me. But I just wanted to make sure, even though I did have a divorce, I did have to put my kids into consideration, to make sure that they know what love looks like,
Hmm.
healthy love. So people just be like, "Oh, you didn't think about your kids," but I did, because I want them, to grow. I can't be like, "Yeah, reflect love," and then they're in the house and have to grow up and repair from their childhood.
Yeah. And be
Uh,
confused. Yeah.
yeah. So even if it's somebody else that comes along and loves me correctly, then they will see, hey, the way how mommy loves this other person, for my sons, I want my wife to love me as such. And the way how he loves mommy for my daughter, I want my husband to love me like that. So that's what I'm just trying to foster,
Yeah.
household of love. Okay, and I'm not giving up on love because my man is going to find me. And if you're watching, and the God sent you, come on.
Yeah, please, if he is watching, you never know. And I love to hear that, because I think, you and I probably both seen both being divorced, that it can go either way. You have some
Yeah.
people where it hits you so hard that you don't want that experience anymore. And I mirror very much to you, where I know that God has it set on my heart to be a wife. Unfortunately, that was not fulfilled in the last experience. However, I think, to what you were saying, right, the connotation of, oh, you didn't think about your kids, right? I've never seen that to be true. And I think, right, you had to break the notion that simply being married is enough. Right.
Mm,
Being in a fulfilled marriage where your kids can see that type of love, a healthy type of love. And for a lot of kids, they're able to see that in a single parent home more than they would in a dual parent.
yeah.
And you have to break that mentality that love can only be seen and felt with, a husband and the wife in the home. Because and I
Yeah.
and I say that as someone where it's like I've lived with my parents before, and my kids have seen love tenfold. And how a
Mm,
man should love, his wife and his kids. And I didn't have a husband here with me, but they still got that experience. But I'm right there with you. I'm still hopeful, not scorned. And I
mhm.
think, for me with divorce, it just kind of changed my perspective on relationships, period. And more so like how I want to show up in relationships. So you talk
Mm,
about creating a safe place, right? That's something that I took from my marriage that I wanted to be very mindful of. Do my
yeah.
kids feel safe? Do my friends feel safe? Do they feel safe? And creating more of a atmosphere of peace and curiosity.
That's
And that's where I put a lot of my effort in. I don't want anyone to say I didn't feel safe coming to Jelesa about this. I didn't feel safe talking to her about this. I wanted to create a safe place within myself. And then also thinking about what relationships are right for me or not. I think
mm,
reflecting back and being honest about, okay, there were some red flags, Lisa. You're just having a good time. Yeah. But at the same time, it's okay. What did you notice then? And how are you going to make sure that you notice them going forward? Just off of what you can control. It caused me to be very quick to notice when somebody's season is up. and
Mm.
leaving situations quicker, because that was probably one of my biggest regrets. So I think it's helped in weeding out a lot of the time.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good to know that you know when to let it go. And I always tell people it's like I wish I had a string. Oh, look at here, I got a scrunchie. It's like tell my clients like sometimes it's a tug of war, right? And so we have this string on us, and we just like, no, I still want it, and circulation gone, and we're bleeding, and right.
Still
And at
trying.
what point do we let it go? Right. So that's where I'm just like, hey, I'm okay with the process. I don't have the bandwidth for you to come and try to say, you know what, I just want to play. No, where are you? Where are we going? What's next? Right?
Hmm.
Does it have to be rushed? No. Are you still going through life as well? Absolutely. Am I still going through life? Absolutely. But what better way if two people are going through life together?
Exactly.
Right? And Uncle Paul told us two is better than one. So that's that.
Yeah.
Um, and that's just what I go off as well too. Like I know it will be helpful for me to have somebody right there. Like even before I come talk to you, like I want to have someone to be like, "All right, you good? You got this?
Yeah.
Yeah, you do this all the time. This easy." Because I always be like, "Man, I'm nervous. I got to present whatever," and then I want to have that person be like, "This light for you. You
Yeah.
you got this. It's easy." And affirm me before I go speak, so I could hear it and know somebody that's rooting for me, and then we'll check in afterwards. How did it go? Are you done yet? Just checking in. Those little things that matter, which is actually happening right now. But that's why I was so able to say it. But just to continue to know, hey, can we still keep growing from here? Or do we just take it slow and just be like, you know what? I thought I was ready, but this maybe was too healthy for me and
Yeah.
I'm not ready. And then it'd just be like, hey, thanks for letting me know. So then I could move on.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly. No, I'm right there with you. The checking in piece too is vital. And I was talking to a girlfriend about this because she was like, I'm just checking in. I hadn't heard from you in a few days,
Yeah.
and realizing that a lot of us now have this cadence where we're either sending a voice memo in the morning, checking in on what's going on during the day. And that has been a really nice, I don't want to say filler, but expanding in those relationships and those friendships for me have also kind of helped build out the standard for any man coming into my life, right? Because
Yeah.
I've created this community where, there's somebody checking in on me. Are you going to be able to do the same? 'Cause
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
that's what we all want at the end of the day. We all want that reciprocal love that's ever flowing, and
Yeah.
we're not just consistently, pouring it out time and time again, and leaving ourselves empty.
Absolutely, because givers will keep giving, but takers they gonna take too.
And look, they take and sleep well at night. That's Yeah, and sleep very well. And that's what I use a lot of the time when I have to kind of take a step back. It's like, Jelesa, somebody that's out for themselves, they can say no and go about their
Mm,
business. They can
yeah.
say no. Say no.
I always say it's like the art of saying no because it's just like, do I say no directly or can I say, you know what, not at this time?
Yeah.
So that's what we talk about when I'm like setting boundaries. It's hard for people to say no, but we could word it differently. Well, I'm not saying the word exactly, but I'm still, saying it without saying it.
Exactly. My go-to now is I don't know if I'm going to have the bandwidth to complete that.
You know what? That's funny because that is my thing, right? People will be like, before they call, so the thing be like, do you have the bandwidth for me? And I love that they respect me enough to ask me before they dump because they
Yes.
know my profession and they don't kind of like use it against me.
Yeah.
So it's just more like, do you have the bandwidth for me? And I was like, yeah, I have the bandwidth, right? And when I don't, they know. I just be like, man, I don't even have the bandwidth.
And it's the kindest way to do it. And I realize for me, it's a level of emotional intelligence too, because I used to be
God.
so crazy, like, no, I don't have time for that. I'm not, and it's like you don't have to. There's a different way to say this, right? When you talk
Mhm.
about creating a safe place, and so I know, right? You have a lot that you're doing right now. Like you said, you have the community, you have your clients that you're coaching, you have 3 kids. So, for I know for me, when I was looking down the road of divorce, that was one of the things I was terrified about. Like, how do I make sure I can pursue my goals and balance all of this out and still be successful and not fall under that stigma? So what
Mm.
advice do you have for women that are maybe going down that path, thinking down that path, already in it? Like, I mean,
Well, the first one I would say, trust God to think. And even if, not saying to be religious, but
yeah,
to be spiritually tied in, like connected, like God is my boy, like that's how I talk to him. So just to have that relationship to know that I honestly don't know how I got here because even with us being in college and I had all 3 of them while we were in college. So it was just like God literally just carried me through
seriously.
and he's gonna keep carrying me through. So that's all I have, right? To trust him and to pray. And they normally say praying is to push, right?
Hmm.
And I push stands for pray until shift happens.
Yeah.
Right. So sometimes I'm not just gonna be like, all right, God, I need this. Okay, bye, take care. But even when I'm getting good things, when I'm graduating with my master's now and I'm licensed for the board, hey, thank you, God. Like I don't forget about him.
Yes.
And the second one,
Oh goodness.
you have to remember to take care of you. We say that cliche saying, oh, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah.
But I always tell people nobody's going to have access to what's inside of my cup. The only thing people should have access to is your overflow, right? So you
Ooh, I
have
love that.
to be able to take care of you, pour into yourself, and do it without guilt. Do it without shame. Do it without what the naysayer is going to say. Okay, let them talk. Okay, because guess what? If you're not contributing to me, if you're not watering me or helping pick out the weeds, or just being a part of my tribe and my support system, I hear what you're saying, but I can't hear you.
Where are you?
Me? Thank you so much for sharing. This I was going to say. That's all I have. And the third one I would say, definitely build community.
Mm,
I always tell people you cannot do life alone. Like you cannot do life alone. And whether you have like I have mentors for each realm of my life
I
cuz
love
I'm also in the military. So I have like my mentor for my counseling, my mentor for being a mom, my mentor for being a friend, my mentor for just doing life. I have these different groups where I know I can't go to my single friends to talk about marriage because they
hmm.
ain't been married. What we talking about, right?
Yeah.
But what we can do, we could talk about, hey, how can we work on ourselves to prepare for marriage? Or hey, what worked for you there that's I should take in, right? So making sure that you have a good support system because you just can't do it alone. And then even if you don't have a support system, call me because then I'm gonna become the support system, and that's where we're at. Drop them kids off because I'm Auntie X,
Yeah.
and and that's where we're at, and that's how they know.
It has
And
to be like that.
yeah, and with that, just even if you do have the support system, just continue to make sure those people have pure intentions.
Mm.
Because sometimes people just be wanting to know your business, being just doing extra, right? But I want people to be around me who genuinely want to see me bloom.
Love that.
And I always tell people like, hey, you are a garden, right? And I want gardeners around me. I want them, girl, you got that weed, let me pluck that out of you. You looking a little bit dry, let me pour some water, let me water you, right? And even like you mentioned before that, reciprocating not just love but reciprocating the energy. I
Yes,
want people to be able to know if I'm not saying nothing, they still hear me, right?
I agree.
So to hear my silent cries more so. when they see that I'm oversleeping and I'm in the bed, they know, all right, X, what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So just, having that team behind you.
It is.
And give yourself grace and compassion.
Like, are you in my notes app right now? Because you literally said everything. The community piece is huge because
Yeah.
I fought that so hard, and also fighting God, where it's like, no, these are the people that I want for me. These are
Mm,
the people I want to make up the community, and I did that. And the thing was, none of them were helping me get any further in life than where I really wanted to be. No offense to anyone. My needs weren't being fulfilled in those relationships, and I wasn't getting the support. And I would, like you say, right, people should get our overflow. I
yeah.
didn't even have enough to give. And I think a perfect example would be for probably the past 3 years. I was staying local to Dallas. I was commuting all the time, dropping off, picking up, and just wearing myself out with my kids.
Yeah.
And I guess God decided, we're about to shake some things up. And that's exactly what he did. Like, I had plans for moving outside of the city, but I did not plan them the way he had them planned. And
Hmm.
I was able to get closer to my parents, where my kids now go to the same school as my mom. So I'm no
Yeah.
longer fighting to drop off and pick up. I'm not fighting
Hmm.
with the daycares anymore. And for a lot of my close friends, they know I was really struggling to get support with my son, who was ADHD diagnosed this past year. Well, after changing him to the school, we ended up finding a tutor that is very close to my mother, who started tutoring and even volunteered her time to say, I'll show up to the 504 meetings with you.
Yeah.
And I remember crying in my closet and thanking God, because I've been begging for community, even like friendships. My daughter's birthday, I had a friend just reach out to me. She's like, I know that you need help with all of this because you're also in the moving of moving. What can I do for you? And it was
Yes.
all happening, at once. And I just thank God, because a year ago, I was praying for community. I was praying for support, but I was so busy trying to get that out of the wrong people who didn't have the capacity, putting myself in situations that were not going to support my lifestyle. And once I stopped fighting what God had intended for me, that's when I
Hmm.
started to be able to live in the excess. I can almost cry just thinking about it, and
Yeah.
finding peace. You know what I mean? Instead of fighting, fighting, fighting. And I think also having representation of women who are doing it and who can
Mm,
be vulnerable enough to lean on their community.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So women like
That's
you,
essential.
yeah,
Hmm.
we have to.
To be able, and it's really important to say what I had to learn is it's okay to ask for help. Cause me, I'd be like, no, I got
Yeah.
it. No, it's okay. I got it. No, and I think I do have it. Now, I ain't gonna lie, I think I do have it. But it's just like, no, X, if these people are willing to help, accept it. And I think that comes too from, we really just don't know how to accept what's healthy.
Hmm.
And then I noticed that going over into other relationship, like romantic relationships,
Yeah.
when people wanted to open the door, like, no, it's okay, I got, and it's just like, dang, X, get out of survivor mode.
Yes. That's it.
Let that man take care of you. Yes. So it is good that we have that community in whatever relationship capacity, but to know that, hey, there's people that want to genuinely help you, even if it's not the people that we expected.
Exactly.
Because as I've known, you're from my business alone, it's no way I think that my family and friends are going to. I've seen strangers meet me one time and be like, yeah, I'm coming to your event. When is it? We don't even stay in the same state,
Mhm.
but they're looking up the flights to ready to come to support me. So it's just like continue to do what you need to do and what you have to do, and God will give you the desires of your heart
Yeah.
because He hears our cries and He hears our prayers. But He's just sitting there like, I'm just gonna wait till you trust me.
I'm just waiting on you. That's exactly what it is. And you have to let it go, because, you're right. You have to be vulnerable enough to ask for help, to ask for that
Yeah.
support. And I was telling my therapist is like, I'm starting to actually see my relationships thrive now because I'm
Yeah.
not just trying to be the strong friend that has it all
Mhm.
because nobody does. We're all trying to deal with the organic struggles that life gives us, let alone the man made ones, right? So it's already tough enough. And that's why I love you saying your relationship with God, having a relationship with God. I think that's, vital as well, knowing who God is. So when you talk about grace, and I think in compassion, I was reading that,
Compassionate.
like, who is God, and He is a compassionate God. And I wish I could go through my notes because I was reading a passage and it said God is compassionate twice. And it's like, I love how they said it 2 times to make sure
Yeah.
that you fully understand. So giving yourself the same compassion and grace that God extends to us just
Yeah.
effortlessly. So yeah,
Yes.
I really, in taking care of you, I think even as a mother, is really important too. So yeah, you're in my notes app right now. That is exactly, even when you talk about people's opinion of what you're going to do. When
Yeah.
I started this podcast, I was thinking of where the support would come from and what people's opinion. But like you said, it can really come from somebody that just met you, that heard about you from a whim. So not leaning to what our understanding of what community
Mhm.
and help is and seeing, who's actually showing up. Because a lot of
Yeah.
people have something to say, but nobody has anything to do. That's what I always
Yeah.
say.
Mhm.
It's like I want to be around the people that are cashing checks, not just sending me emojis in my social media.
And it's a good balance too, because people, they're gonna remember. Sometimes they don't even. We could do this whole thing. They don't remember nothing that we said, but then they could feel the energy and say, "You know what? I felt that. Oh, she is me. I am she,"
You
and
never
just
know.
feel the presence, right? So that's why I always tell my kids too, like, words do
They
matter,
do.
but when you get around somebody, when people come to the house and you offer them some water, something to eat, because we love to eat here, but they're gonna remember how they felt when they came here,
Yeah,
and that's the goal. I
exactly.
want you to feel something. I want, even if it makes you cry, if you have something in your throat, if you need to throw up, whatever, I want you to feel something.
Yeah,
Just after being in contact with me.
exactly. Well, speaking of being in contact with you, so
Beautiful segue.
I'm just rolling through. But I do want you to share, for our community, I know you have some great events coming up. I know you have some great communities that people can join. So let all of our listeners know, how they can follow you, what you have going on, so we can support.
Yeah, so everybody can just go to the website, reflectlove327.com. As you come on there, it's going to be like a pop-up and it's going to be like, subscribe to my newsletter. I put most of everything I pour out into those newsletter. Every month we have, a different alliteration. I love
I
alliteration.
know I love the September newsletter.
And once I capture your email, you're going to get these. So we are in self-care September, self-reflection September as well. And you'll find out about that. But I do have Instagram, it's the same, Reflect Love 327, and the Facebook is the same as well. And upcoming events and being connected with me. Yeah. October 26th, I do have my empowerment event titled Bloom. And I did say bloom earlier, so it was just so beautiful. And this event is just for us to be able to celebrate ourselves that we gotten through the cultivation season, right?
Mhm.
Because we've been through, right? But now I want us to be able to say, you know what? I did pass that one exam. I did get accepted. You know what? I made it to another day. So I want to be able to bloom where you're planted and know that you are created with purpose.
Oh, I love
Um, so that's that event. And just to talking about community,
it.
I do have an empowerment group called Bestie. That's based off my daughter. Her name is Jalen, but I called her Bestie. She's the only girl. So Bestie actually stands for Building Everlasting Sisterhood and Trusting in Involvement. So with that group, we're just connecting, we're talking, talking about all type of topics and how can we grow,
Mm,
especially as those of us that have businesses, those of us that have kids. Like, how do you do both? How can you travel, without having that mom guilt or
mm,
mom shame? Again, the naysayers, they're going to have something to say, but we got to take care of ourselves. And then lastly, I do have parenting with love, and I'm working on just parenting classes because nobody, nobody wrote us a book on how
mm-mm.
on how to do this. We're, sometimes we're winging it, but things that I've learned, that I've seen, that I picked up, just being able to deal with kids and be with kids all the time. That's what I'm gonna be pouring out. And of course, it's kind of like piggybacking off of Reflect Love. So I'm just saying, parenting with love, but love is an acronym. So that stands for being able to listen and love, being open minded, using your voice and evolving. So, just diving deep, going into
Yeah.
that, and above all else, just building generational mental health wealth. I just love it here. Like, this is real.
And it's so needed. It is so needed. Generational mental health. I love
Yes.
that. I
Hmm.
love that. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. You have a busy schedule. I'm so excited about these events, though. Thank you so much for speaking to our community. We love
Yes.
having you here, and I will see the rest of you on our next episode. Bye.
Yes. Thank you.
That was good. Okay.